The Illinois State's Attorney's Appellate Prosecutor's Office, along with the state police, are currently investigating to determine if any criminal or public records laws were broken regarding the April 25th shredding of dozens of Springfield Police Internal Affairs documents, including Deputy Chief Cliff Buescher's file. As we showed you in our previous stories, this man, Calvin Christian, a web blogger who writes about the SPD, filed this Freedom of Information Act request on April 11th. Requesting Deputy Chief Cliff Buescher's internal affairs file. Specifically, he asked for the details of a 2008 Missouri incident at this Ozark Mountains resort. In our previous stories, we showed you the details from these internal affairs documents. They contain the statements made by these two other high-ranking Springfield police officers and this teenager. All were at the resort with then-Commander Buescher. These documents from the Taney County, Missouri Prosecutor's Office stated Buescher was intoxicated and fired his weapon on 2 occasions. During internal affairs interviews, all 3 people accused Buescher of making idle threats about a woman whom he'd argued with earlier in a bar. This is audio recorded during Deputy Chief Doug Williamson's internal affair interview. Williamson says this is what another officer, Lieutenant Kurt Banks, told him about that allegation.
Cliff wanted to go back to town and in Cliff's words, kill the.
According to Buescher's internal affairs interview, investigators never asked him about that. But there's more. Jake Joslin, who was at the time 15 years old, told investigators in 2008 that Commander Buescher was holding a gun, pointed at the ground, looked him in the eye and said in a joking way, "You want to lose that leg, mother expletive." When asked about that during his internal affairs interview, Buescher said he didn't remember saying that. This is the information in Deputy Chief Buescher's file that Calvin Christian's FOIA request asked for. It's also important to note that Christian's FOIA request stated this, quote, "If these files are denied from release, I am requesting that everything is preserved until all appeals are exhausted." This is a copy of the single-page agreement that changed the current police contract on April 25th. The agreement reduces the wait time to destroy certain internal affairs files from 5 years to 4. That change allowed for the immediate shredding of Deputy Chief Buescher's file. It's signed by Police Chief Robert Williams, Don Edwards, the head of the police union, and it is initialed by Assistant City Attorney Jeanette Wittendorf. Chief Williams and Wittendorf refused to be interviewed for our story. Edwards did not respond to a repeated request for an interview. Our investigation reveals the SPD did not have the authority to destroy those documents. It all has to deal with a series of state laws laid out in the Local Records Act. In short, the Act lists what a municipality like the City of Springfield must do before destroying documents like Deputy Chief Cliff Buescher's internal affairs file. The governing body that decides when documents can be destroyed under the Local Records Act is the Local Records Commission. The Local Records Commission is made up of a panel of local and state officials. The Local Records Commission is a part of the Secretary of State's office. When wanting to destroy documents, the first step a municipality must take is to fill out this form called an application for authority to dispose of local records. The Springfield Police Department did that, requesting the 5-year disposal of certain files, which was consistent with the police union contract. In December 2012, the SPD was granted approval to destroy certain records after 5 years, which included Deputy Chief Cliff Buescher's internal affairs file. But remember, the police department and its union agreed to change the contract, calling for the destruction of disciplinary documents from 5 to 4 years. As a result, the Local Records Act states that the police department then needed to fill out and file an amendment asking the Local Records Commission for permission to lower the destruction timetable from 5 to 4 years. This letter, dated June 4th, shows the police department did do that. Problem is, the internal affairs files were destroyed on April 25th. According to the Local Records Act, amendments cannot be filed retroactive. As a result, the Local Records Commission deferred the request. David Jones is one of the members on the Local Records Commission. He says that aside from the retroactive issue, the commission deferred the SPD's amendment request because one of the files the police department sought permission to destroy, Deputy Chief Buescher's internal affairs file, was the subject of a Freedom of Information Act request.
I understand there's a FOIA out there for these records. And anytime there's pending or possible litigation out there for records, no matter what the retention is, you don't have the authority to dispose of it.
But that's exactly what the police department did. That said, were any criminal laws broken as a result of the shredding? This is what the Local Records Act states about tampering with public records. A person who knowingly and without lawful authority alters, destroys, defaces, removes, or conceals any public record commits a Class 4 felony. Sources with direct knowledge of the investigation tell News Channel 20 this is a section of the Local Records Act that the Illinois State Appellate Prosecutor's Office and the Illinois State Police are focusing on as they continue their probe of the April 25th shredding incident. In addition, sources tell us, they are also looking to determine if the proper procedures laid out in the Local Records Act were followed by the police department before it destroyed the documents in question. This email from Assistant City Attorney Jeanette Wittendorf to Chief City Attorney Mark Cullen was written just hours before Deputy Chief Buscher's file was shredded on April 25th. Wittendorf writes, "Hi, Mark. IA needs confirmation from you that this is to be effective immediately." Chief City Attorney Cullen responds, "Based on the MOU executed with the PBPA, the expungement of files subject to that MOU needs to occur immediately." But in the days prior to the shredding, Assistant City Attorney Wittendorf and SPD Chief Robert Williams were warned repeatedly not to destroy those documents. Most notably, Deputy Chief Buscher's file because it was under that FOIA request by Calvin Christian. Those warnings are documented in a series of emails obtained by News Channel 20, and they're written by the head of Internal Affairs, Lieutenant Chris Mueller. Lieutenant Mueller to Assistant City Attorney Wittendorf, quote, "I respectfully request that you inform the mayor of my conversation with you on the Tuesday before the expungements occurred, expressing my concerns over expunging files that were subject to a valid FOIA request." Lieutenant Mueller continues, "I called you again on Wednesday evening, reiterating the same concerns." Here's Lieutenant Mueller to Chief Williams. "I met with you in your office and vehemently advised against the rush to expunge files that appeared to be in response to a FOIA request." This is Chief Williams' email response to Lieutenant Mueller. Referring to the contract change, Chief Williams states he had to, quote, "lean more heavily than normal on the legal advice I was receiving." Chief Williams continues, "I assured you that I would ask the question, 'Are you sure?' before proceeding. I got an answer. And based on that answer, I proceeded."
I want to make this crystal clear. The records that were destroyed on April 25th by the Springfield Police Department, they did not have authorization to destroy those records, correct?
Correct.
And in addition, because there's a pending FOIA request, you would have denied it, period, even if it was 5 years.
Yeah.